Hi guys, this is Julia from Just One More Card, and today I want to give you a step-by-step tutorial on how to color with Inktense pencils. I'll be using the It's My Party stamp set by TheAlleyWayStamps. It's a new release this month, and these turtles just beg to be colored in a really awesome way. You guys have left me so many comments about my Inktense coloring that I thought that I should do a step-by-step tutorial, so this video will be a bit longer than usual. I'm using watercolor cardstock. I'm not sure if you can see the nice texture it has. This watercolor cardstock is called Britannica. You can Google for that or look on Amazon. I got it from my local craft store, and I'm using archival black ink to ink up my stamp, because this ink does not react with water, which means it won't bleed when we use our water brush. You might want to clean your stamp properly afterwards, because the archival ink is very strong ink. It's not like a regular dye ink, and it will most likely stain your stamps, but your stamps that will not transfer to the next color that you're using, so you're going to be fine. Regarding colors, I have made this chart for myself for my Inktense pencils. I got the idea from my crafty friend Tara, who owns the Make the Day Special stamp store in the UK. She has a similar chart. And what I did is I simply drew a grid with my pencil and then scribbled down a little bit of the color with the Inktense pencil and blended it out. And it was important to me that I had a nice gradient, so that I would see how the color would look like in its very intense form. That's what you can see to the left of these little squares, and how it would look like when you blend it out with water. So because I needed to get an impression of how would these colors look if I used them in the darks, and how would they look in the highlights. Now these are the colors I'm starting out with. I then forgot to write down the colors. I'm sorry, these are just the first ones that I can show you. These are 1400, 1550, and 1600. And by the way, I bought the full set of the colors. It's 72 pencils because I just didn't want to, hunt individual pencils down. Now to start out with the coloring, I'm putting down the lightest color in the place where the shadows are going to be. I'm not going into the area where my complete highlights will be, and as you can see, I've put down so little color that you can barely see it. I'm actually putting down a little bit more now in the where it will be absolutely the darkest, but you could still think that's not a lot of color. Now when I come in with my number 2 brush here, that is damp, not wet, damp, you can see how the color immediately gets activated by the water and intensified. That's kind of why they call it Inktense pencils, Inktense, intense. Yeah, I know it took me a while to figure this out. And there's a reason why my brush is only damp. First of all, you can see how I always pick up new water to the side. If you're right-handed, you might want to put that cup to the right, not to the left. I'm not the smartest cookie sometimes. Don't ask me. And you can see that the damp brush gives me a lot of control over how far I can push the color, or how far the color goes. If my brush would be very wet, the color would flow all over the place, and that's exactly what I do not want. I want lots of control. I'm a control freak. I want to say where the color goes and where it will stay. So that's why damp brush for me. Now in these, I'm just going to call them plates because I have no clue what the correct term for this is. I'm putting down, again, the lightest color in the area where it would be the darkest. And again, it's just very little color. I'm not pressing down hard with my pencil, just scribbling a little bit of color down. And you can see immediately when I come on with my damp brush and activate the color, it's very intense. And sometimes I like to use these little swirly motions, because that will make sure that when I get to the highlight area, I won't have that much pigment left on my brush anymore. And that will allow me to actually have a highlight area instead of just an evenly colored area, which I do not want. Now this is the same color again that I just put down. And the reason I'm putting down a second coat of the first color again is that I want to push it out a little bit further to the top. But if I put it up further, like scribble down further up, it would be darker further up. I hope that makes sense. So that's why I'm always working from the dark to the light. Well, from the bottom to the top, wherever your shadows are. basically. And I'm repeating this process in these plates here as well. This is once more the very same color that I just put down. Using the very same color in the shadow areas and just spreading this out a bit with my brush here. Inktense coloring takes a while, at least the way I'm doing it. I'm not sure if there's another way, but I found that this way works best for me, so that's why I'm sticking to it so far at least. This takes a while. You work in layers. If you use a damp brush, the layers will dry rather quickly, so you can work somewhat quickly, but it's not as fast as maybe Copic coloring. So if you don't have the time, Inktense coloring is maybe not the right thing for you. So now I wanted to give the previously colored areas a chance to dry. So I'm coming in with a light blue color and putting it down in the shadow areas on the skin of the turtle. I know, it's blue. Just trust me, I'm gonna make this right, don't worry. And you can see how I'm cleaning my brush off to the side after I had activated the color and then pull the color out. The reason for this is if I would go all the way to the bottom now, I have too much pigment in my brush. That means I will have a solidly covered area that has no shadows and no highlights. So that's why I'm activating the color first with my damp brush, cleaning out the brush, coming back with a clean brush, and now I'm spreading out the color that I have just activated. Now, Inktense pencils are permanent once they have dried, so you might not want to wait too long, otherwise you'll have lines in your, once it dries, you have lines in your coloring. So keep that in mind. Now I'm coming in with my middle color on the green here. And you can see I just added some at the very bottom because I want to be careful. I wasn't entirely sure how dark it would go immediately. So I'm just putting some down here, and you can see there is a difference to the other color. It's not, like the most obvious difference, but I didn't want to risk going too dark too quickly. And then I wanted to add in some color while the paper was still wet, so it would blend easier. And I'm picking it up directly from the pencil. That's completely fine. You will not hurt the pencil. It's absolutely fine to do that. And you can see that I can immediately intensify the color, and then I'm coming in with a clean brush and blending out this second layer. And I'm doing the exact same thing here on the plates. I came in with my second color, the second darkest one, put it in the shadow area, and I activate it, and then I carefully spread it out. And remember, once this is dry, it's permanent, so you cannot light it up in retrospect, like not a lot at least. So I think it's better to work slowly and to work in more layers than to go too dark too quickly. Here I have put down some gray in the shadow areas and I've activated it, and now I'm pulling it out over the blue because I don't want my turtle to be completely blue, but I want the gray to have a sort of a bluish tinge. I'm not sure if they're turtles or turquoises or whatever else. Cleaning out my brush, and then I'm coming in and I'm actually adding some of the darkest color. Now I have the darkest color here. And you can see at first, it's not so much of a difference, but just bear with me, we'll get to that in a moment. Also adding some of the darkest color here on the plates again. And once more, you can see me carefully blending this out and leaving room for the highlights, not pulling it up all the way. So now I want to make sure that there's a lot of contrast on the card. So I'm taking the darkest color directly from the pencil and adding it into the area of the turtle that would be the darkest, because that's away from my light source. And you can see that picking it up from the pencil has the advantage of giving me a lot of pigment that I can put down where I want to do that. And I'm doing this again, putting down yet another layer because I like high contrast. I am just a fan of high contrast coloring, very dark shadows and then very light highlights. And you can see that I'm actually pushing up the color a little bit further than I did before I come in with a clean brush and blend it out so I have a soft gradient. And you can see that now, considering where we started, it makes a lot of a difference. I'm coming in with the color that I started out with on these plates and just very lightly scribbling it down over the entire area because I wanted to warm the color here a bit. It got a little bit too dark. or too cold, like the brown was a little bit too cold, too greenish. And now I'm coming in with the very first color, and you can see how these plates warm up immediately because the first color was very warm. But I don't lose the shadows that I did because that color has permanently dried and will not get activated. I'm also using that color that I just scribbled onto the plates to add another tint to the turtle. I decided I didn't want the color to be bluish gray. I wanted it to be a little bit more towards a brownish green, but still with that cold undertone that the blue gray gives me. So I'm picking up a little bit of color from my pencil and then spreading it out over the turtle here. And you can see, because I'm not reactivating the layer underneath, I can actually tint it, which is pretty awesome. Really, it's awesome. That's what I love about Inktense pencils, that they are really permanent once they have dried. And only that allows you to do this kind of layering. At least I'm not good enough with watercolors to do that. Maybe that's possible too, but I'm not good enough to do that, so I'm pretty happy that the Inktense pencils give me the opportunity to work in so many layers. And here I just added the darkest color again into the shadow areas on the plates to make sure I have a lot of contrast here again as well. Well, you see I have a lot of contrast. That's exactly what I wanted. Lots of contrast. I am the high contrast girl. Yoo-hoo! And then of course I also have to color in the party hat and the present, and I'm doing the same thing as I did for the entire rest of the turtle. I put down some purple in the shadow area, and then I'm coming in with my brush and blend this out. And for me personally, the most important thing is to make sure that I leave room for my highlight, because I tend to overcolor and not leave room for a highlight. So that's why I'm a very careful colorer, I think, because I don't want to mess this up. So that's why I'm cleaning my brush and then pulling out the color, but you can see how light it is towards the upper left, and that will allow me to get this awesome highlight. And here you can see that even in tiny areas like this, like rim, it's worth working, for example, just with two colors. You can see how much difference it makes to add a darker color on the bottom, because that now gives me the illusion of roundness in this part of the turtle. Now this is actually my third layer of purple. I added another layer with the same color that I used in the first layer, and this is a darker purple on this third layer that you're seeing me do now. That's there for the shadows. Now I was done with the main coloring, but I wanted to add some sparkles, so I grabbed my perfect pearls and added a few drops of water to the pearl that is here in the top of the container thing. And I'm adding the gold into the shadow areas, and then I'm coming in with a clean brush and pulling out some of the gold into the lighter areas, because it's quite opaque, the perfect pearls, if you don't dilute them enough. And I didn't want to darken my highlights, because after all the work that I've went through to get those highlights, I really did not want to darken them. But I did want to have the sparkle everywhere. And I'm doing the same thing with the perfect pearls in the color Perfect Pearl. Yes, I know. And adding that to the eye, to the present, and to the hat. And you can see here, when you don't dilute it a lot and you color over the stamped lines, you can see that it's not completely transparent. It's not a problem, but you should know that if that is a problem for you. That's why I'm mentioning it. Now I'm actually done with the coloring. Yay! Now comes the assembly of the card. I used the die by W+9 to die cut my panel, and you can see the beautiful shimmer that you get here. There it is. That's the beautiful shimmer that we get from the perfect pearls. And then I've added more perfect pearls into the top part of the container here, and then I'm adding a few drops of water, but I'm making sure that the consistency of my perfect pearls here is more like a paste and not like water with a few gold drops in it. The reason for that is that I want to basically put some golden flecks onto my card, so like spritz it with gold, and I don't want this to be too watery, because if it's too watery then I won't have crisp flecks of gold. I hope that makes sense. Like, the more water you add to it, the more it will just splash, but I wanted to have very small and precise flecks of gold. So I'm holding the brush in my left and then flicking, I'm right-handed, flicking against the brush with my right. And actually this took me quite a few minutes to go over the entire panel and do that, but I feel that the patience really really paid off, because you can see that I get these tiny flecks of gold that I couldn't even have gotten with a spray, and sprays never work for me. So I was perfectly willing to spend the time and mess up my fingers with gold, to get these tiny specks of gold, and it will just look awesome in real life. I'm using VersaFine for the sentiment because VersaFine is my favorite ink to stamp sentiment. It's very crisp, very dark, but it's a pigment ink, so it needs a few minutes to dry. And then I wrapped some green twine around my front panel here, and using my tweezers to hold this in place before I spent about 3 minutes trying to make the perfect bow. Because I suck at doing bows, but I still do them. So I succeeded at some point, and I was quite happy with it. I'm gonna trim this down later on because I don't need it quite that long, but I wanted to do it last. And then I'm putting a generous amount of glue on the back of my card here, and I'm putting on a generous amount because I'm going to use some fun foam, and I want the fun foam to really stick to the paper and later on stick to the card, because I don't want this to come apart. And I found when I use glue with fun foam, it turns the fun foam into stone basically, and I wasn't quite happy with that because I didn't like the feel of the card. It wasn't flexible anymore. Yes, I am crazy, I know. So here's the fun foam, putting that on there, checking this, being very happy about this, and then putting some glue on the fun foam itself so I can put it on the card base. And then I'm using my glossy accents to put some sequins by Pretty Pink Posh down. And of course, I have rediscovered my love for glossy accents after being sent one of these fine tip applicators by one of my viewers from Great Britain. And it's just awesome because you can control how much glossy accents you use. It doesn't squirt out to the side, and I'm making sure that it doesn't clog up by squeezing the glossy accents, like squeezing after I'm done until there's only air coming out of the nozzle and no glue anymore. And then when you screw the top on of this fine tip applicator, it actually has like a metal rod that goes into this fine tip, and I think that also prevents it from clogging up. But I think the most important part is you have to actually clean the nozzle, like push out all the glue, and sometimes that's quite a bit of glue that comes out. Like I could easily cover one of those plates with the amount of glue that I usually push out when I'm done with all the glossy accents. But it's fun. I'm really enjoying using the glossy accents again because I can have so much control with the fine tip applicator. I didn't think it would make so much of a difference, but it really does. And yeah. So I'm putting glue on the eye of the turtle and on the plates here, and that will also trap the glitter that we just applied with the perfect pearls, and it will look pretty awesome when the card is all done. So here's a close-up of my perfect bow. I added a purple, actually that is an originally purple gem that I put here in the middle of the bow just to give it some more interest. Here's a close-up of the turtle, and I think you can see how much the coloring in the layers paid off. You have really nice gradients, and you really go from dark to light, which gives a lot of life to the image that you're coloring. Here's the entire card with the bow, the sequence by Pretty Pink Posh, and the little bit of the splatter that we did with the perfect pearls. I hope you've enjoyed this project. If you have any questions or comments, leave me a comment, and I would really appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up and if you would subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!